Todd Profit Lighting and Sound Tech. This is diagramming a sound system. I do this for reasons I think it's a good way to think about how sound system goes together, and I also think it's a good skill just for troubleshooting. Basically what this is, it's a documentation of a basic documentation of how the sound system is set up. It's used by technicians to troubleshoot. It's used by technicians to document the different sound systems, and it's just a simple way to do it. This was created by the USITT Sound Commission. It looks like if you look on the paper, it was in October 2008 was when this was created. This is called the recommended sound graphics recommended practice. Okay, pardon me. What this means is it's not a standard, it's a guideline, it's a recommended practice. Kind of like we do with light plots as well. They're recommended practices, and it's just a way to get people working in the same sort of fashion, so if you go one place or another, you can read the document. So if you get a chance, please read through this first part. All right, so we're going to start with, and this covers audio system diagrams. All right, so the first thing we do is if we're going to have a sound system, we need to have a way to show different equipment. So first thing we make is we call them device blocks. Right. So this would represent a piece of sound equipment, its inputs and its outputs. These could be large, this could be small, depending on how many inputs and outputs you actually have. So if we had something like this sound mixer here, we would draw a square for it or a rectangle for it, and it would have so many inputs and so many outputs. You're going to put the make and model type up top. It is optional, but I like to do that, and I want you to do that for your sound diagrams for me. And here's the equipment type. Here's the input, and here the output. It has 2 inputs and 2 outputs. Okay. If you have things that you're going to list in other places, then you're going to do this little squiggly line here. But for the most part, this is what your diagram block is going to look like. This is just some other different options that you can do for those. Now, when you connect 2 devices, you're going to connect them with a line from the inputs to the outputs. And later on, I'll show you there's another trick in which you can actually show the connector types on those as well. So those are device blocks. Those are different connections. We're going to scroll on here. These are the cable connections. You put what type it is. So TRS should sound familiar. XLR should sound familiar. You put the connector types here so that you know what the connector types are and what cables that you're going to need to set up the system. If you're going to be doing groups, not going to worry about that too much here. But if you have a whole big group, you have a snake. Remember, a snake is a whole bunch of inputs that are sort of tied together, kind of like a multi-cable for sound. That's how you can do those groups. We're not going to worry about patch bays, but patch bays, you use those all the time in sound, kind of like a patch panel in lighting. But that's how you would show that. Let's go ahead and scroll on down to these are some different cable conventions. Again, I'm not going to worry too much. If you're going to do a 2 for something like that, it's good to have the dot and split them off there. You can do longer runs, and you can put the lengths of the cables or the snakes or the fan outs, depending on what they are, multi being like a multi-cable. All right. Scrolling down to amplifiers. So you go, typically your mixer is going to be that box that you saw before. The next part's going to be the amplifier. Now you always know an amplifier because it's got a triangle in it. That means it has power. Okay. Now remember, if you go back to the amplifier video, there's a few different ways. There's a few different type of amplifiers you can have. First, parallel mode. Okay. I'm sorry, in 2-channel mode. That's where one comes in one and goes out another, comes in one, goes out another, and the triangles represent the amplifiers. It's the same sort of device box, but with triangles in there. Now, if it's in parallel mode or mono mode, then you're going to have them bridged together or put together like this. Now, bridged is the wrong word, because you're going to have 1 signal in and 2 signals out. Okay. Now, if you have 1 signal in and 1 signal out, and it's a bridged amp, then you're going to have the large triangle like this. Here's just an example of a simple little mono amp. Again, you're going to have the amp number there in the top and device and model above it. So after the amplifier, we go to the loudspeaker. Loudspeaker, now these are the individual speaker drivers. Okay, remember each speaker has their own mid-range, tweeter, mid, and subwoofer. Sometimes it might have 2 mid-range. But you draw those drivers in here, okay? If it's just a single mono out, then you're going to draw something like this. If you're going to amplify them after a crossover, then you're going to do them, then you would actually do them this way. So however many inputs they have is how many lines going into the individual drivers. This is a little more advanced stuff. Don't worry too much about that. Now, a powered speaker, okay? We've talked about powered speakers before. I showed you one in the last couple of videos. That's a speaker with an amplifier in it. If it's a speaker, it's got this symbol. If it's an amplifier, it's got a triangle. So put those two together and you get a powered speaker. Okay. So how do you do microphones? Microphones symbols are a circle, and then you have the microphone number in there. Again, location, make, and model are all different things that you can put in there. What if it's a wireless transmitter? Got the device box like before, but you put a little lightning bolt in between the two, and you can put the frequency in there if you want. If you have antennas, that's how you do that. Okay, so these are some other things that we don't worry too much about. It's a little more advanced. So what does this actually mean? So let's go back. Let's look at that system I showed you in one of the other videos. So this is a basic system. We've got a Shure microphone going into channel 1. And coming out of channel 1, we have left and right going into the crown amplifier, and then we have cables, and we have our speakers. So this is our system. Now and we also have a wireless system set up here. So how are we going to diagram that? Well, here's just the most basic, system. Let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see everything. All right. So again, we have our Shure XL1, our Shure in an XLR SM58. It's in channel number 1. Just to draw a line, we have XLR on both ends there. Then we have a Countryman. This is the wireless mic that we had up there. Let me just show you that real quick. There's that wireless mic. Goes into the transmitter, Shure XLS transmitter, to the receiver, and that's XLR to XLR into input number 2. And there are 2 XLR inputs right there. And that's where we would put those in. Okay. So then we go into our little Soundcraft board, which is here. Okay, so we have both those inputs coming in. Now I'm coming out of there, out of the left and right, we're going into our crown amplifier. Okay, again, from XLR to XLR. This would again be a balanced signal. All right. And then we're going to NL4 into our 2 speakers. All right. So then you're going to put a title block down there in the corner. Okay. Please check the drafting book to find out the standards for a title block. But this is a basic system diagram. So if I were troubleshooting, I would want to start from one end and then move to another to try to figure out what's going on. First you check your mics, then I might check my transmitter, then I'm going to check my mixer and my amplifiers and the speakers. You can also work the other way. So if you're troubleshooting, it's best to start from one end and go to the other. Sometimes you can start in the middle, but if you start in the middle, go one way and then go the other. All right, it is always best. I usually try to start from the beginning. Okay. So that's how you draw a basic sound system diagram. They can be as simple as this, but they can also be a little more complex. Let me just show you some different ones. All right. Now, if you Google USITT sound graphics, it'll take you to their site, and they've got not only the document that I shared with you before, but you're also going to have a bunch of examples. And here's some of the examples that they have and some that I have. So again, this is just a basic. Let me zoom in here a little bit. This is a laptop going to an SFX computer through Ethernet, and then it's got a Layla data, not sure what that is, into an audio interface, and then we don't have a mixer, we're just going the audio interface straight to amplifiers, we know that because of the triangle, and then into the speakers. Now this is actually giving the location of the speakers, which I think is really good. I also like to do this with a speaker plot, which we won't go into today, which is just drawing where the speakers go. Okay, so here's an example of another one. Let me zoom this one out. This is a West Side Story one, and I really got to zoom out here to show you. This is a really, really big one. Okay, but again, a bunch of microphones, transmitters, and receivers. Okay, and I think you already have all these in your class folder. But I'll make sure I put a link to those so you can take a look at all those examples. All these, you can look at them a little more closely, just to kind of sense of how they work. But again, we go into a very large mixing console, okay? And then we have system processors, and then here's all of our amplifiers, and here's all of our speakers. But it's exactly the same way that other one is. Those other ones are. Okay, again, a whole another one, an even larger system. Here's another one that deviates a little bit from the standard. It's got some things in there, some patch stuff, but you get the same idea. It does the same sort of thing. Different microphones going in into, again, a large inputs and then all of the outputs. Here's one with wireless speakers. Okay, Now this one's got some sound systems. You put stuff in line, like you put a compressor in there or an effects machine, where it goes out of the console and then back in. That's how you would show something like that. And I know it's kind of small on your screen right now, but you can look at these examples a little later. Again, just a couple more. All right. That's your different examples. Like I said, I'll upload all this to OnCourse and give you some different links to the examples, and I'll put my example up there that I showed you before. Thank you so much. One of the next things we'll do is the final, so I'll see you then.